Great relationships don't just happen, they're designed. But how do you get the love you really want when you haven't had the models and examples you needed?
We've learned the hard way that talking about stuff can change everything, but it doesn't come naturally, and that's normal.
Welcome to the Project Relationship Podcast. I'm Dr. Joli Hamilton.
And I'm Ken Hamilton.
Join us as we explore the ups and downs of creating a custom-built love.
We'll get personal and talk about what's worked for us, hear from Joli about what the research can teach us about love, and answer listener questions.
It's time to reimagine relationships from the ground up. Welcome to the Project Relationship Podcast.
Okay, so this episode we're going to be talking about affection and non-sexual intimacy. And that sounds like a lot of fun. And I think right off the bat, I'd like to talk about, what do you mean intimacy?
Oh, okay. Well, I do like to define terms. This one's tough.
I have a lot of other things that I want to talk about affection
Okay.
and non-sexual interactions, but intimacy.
Okay. How about this? For the sake of this particular conversation,
Yeah.
let's talk about intimacy that relates to how we share physical space.
Good.
Because there's so much else we can talk about, and we'll talk about friendship, and I'm sure we're going to touch upon emotional intimacy too. But I think that if we take on all of intimacy, it's so much we might miss what I think we're getting to when we're talking about like affection.
Let's talk about sharing.
So let's talk about meat space,
physical space.
You know, when we're in embodied space with people.
That's a lot of my thoughts around this today do revolve around like how we embody ourselves in the world and what it feels like to be in a world with other people with bodies. Not about the sex, but about like, well, how does it feel when someone holds my hand? Depends on what's going on. But because sometimes it makes me feel very nervous. Because for my own purposes, for the particularity of my person, I think, am I misunderstanding what's happening right now? Am I going to be am I going to act confusing to this person because they touched me in this way for a purpose and I'm not sure why?
Well, I remember the first time I told you why there's a really clear move that I socialized as a woman in a particular time period at the very least. If I wanted to get the attention of someone who I wanted physical affection from, I would touch their forearm. And because I happened to be a diminutive, socialized, feminine, white woman with so much privilege, that had never cost me anything. It had never been a problem. Nobody had ever challenged me on like reaching across a table and lightly touching their forearm. But you had a very different experience of being socialized. You were like, oh my gosh, I would never do that.
Yep.
I would never.
No.
I had to tell you what I was doing because you didn't take it personally. While I did feel you respond to that effective touch, I would reach out and touch, you did sort of respond to it intuitively from your body, but you didn't start using that. And we had to have a talk about why.
Yeah.
Why?
Because I love affection. I love physical affection. I like touch very much. And then overlaid on that is some is my socialization about whether it's okay to reach out and touch someone else. And I mean, I was socialized in a time where the word consent was still a few decades off.
That's true.
So,
I mean, it did exist. It's just no one used it for young white men like yourself. Oh my.
Yeah. So, I wonder about how you have found your experience of affection in meat space, in this, in your embodied self, and non-sexual
Yeah.
And I was going to say non-romantic. That's a completely different topic.
Oh, that
Right?
right there starts the complexity for me, because I'm I'm pansexual. I'm attracted to humans, and some of them, but not along any kind of lines that could be defined by anything other than just, am I or am I not attracted to them? And even more than that, do I want to foster an attraction to them?
I know about that.
So,
I understand that.
That said, I very much appreciate physical affection, hugs, handshakes, touches on the arm, the touching on a couch, holding hands, high fives. I could go on. Yep. I like physical affection. I did not know this about myself until about a decade ago. I thought I didn't really care about it. I knew I loved sex, but I didn't think I liked physical affection. And that was due to a whole bunch of past trauma. And that needed a lot of work. But once I recognized that I did like affection, I was really glad that I was able to recognize it. But then it also made very clear how hard it would be to get it. I was shocked to find out that it wasn't just, I need to unpack my desire for physical affection and for physical closeness with people who I'm friends with and such, but oh my gosh, wow. I have run up against so much back pressure against that, as if all touch is sexualized at this point. And especially because I'm pansexual, bisexual, I've run into the assumption that because I want to be just physically, at all physically affectionate or close, that means that I am sexually attracted to someone, when it absolutely does not. And honestly, it pisses me off.
Yeah.
It's so limiting. It's so limiting. I like cuddling. I like hanging out.
There's a reason people have cuddle parties.
Yeah. Yep.
And
that's a real event. Like a cuddle party is there's an organization. There are great somatic professionals who do cuddling, platonic touch. And
one of the reasons that they're doing it is I think what you're just describing, which is there's a cultural back pressure to platonic touch.
Yeah.
So socialized as a man, there's some real serious context-specific back pressures against physical touch.
Would you say more about that?
Well,
because I believe you,
actually,
and I've heard this talked about. But
you know what? I think I should put it the other way. There's a small number of contexts under which that platonic. Start again. There's a small number of contexts where a man
where you're allowed to touch your buddies,
is allowed to touch his buddies, and it's mostly around the locker room.
A smack on the ass after a touchdown is allowed.
Yeah.
And actually, so no, you have a black belt in judo. You can get your face all the way. You can get your face all the way up in there. I have seen you with your face
everything.
All the way. I've seen you with your face all the way up in there, but that's a different thing. But then I've seen you during a judo competition, with your face all the way up in there. And that is not sexual. It is very sensual to watch. There's a sensuality to all touch, sort of in an artistic sense. But you're engaged in this physical act, but it is not sexual. I could sexualize it from the outside.
You could, but it's not.
I've seen you, and I know your energy really well now. And I think about that, I know the micro expressions you make when you are in a sexualized place. That is not.
It's not what's happening.
It's not what's happening. You're in this intensity. You're in an intensity that is physical, but is very different.
I'm blown away right now by the parallel between physical touch and eye contact. Because when I've had a bunch of nature training, and you've heard about this. So if if you run across a wild animal, you don't look at it in the eyes unless you want to either fight it or fuck it.
Oh, right.
And people, if you think of humans as wild animals, you have the same approach. Don't look them in the eyes unless you're either going to...
I think you have the same approach.
Me. The eye contact for me can feel uncomfortable because I do feel like the response is that I'm either attracted or aggressive, and that there isn't anything in between.
Wow.
And
So,
the physical,
yeah.
and I hear you describing physical touch. I just heard you, reflect back about the judo,
Yeah.
and yeah, it feels so much the same. Like there's no nuance available, and of course there is nuance available, and I need to believe that.
Yeah, you have to believe that it is possible. So,
And that it will be accepted as nuanced.
right. And there's the thing. I mean, I lost a friend recently and it was not accepted as nuance.
Yeah.
My expression of wanting intimacy and affection with this person was met with a full stop to our relationship in all ways. In some
there
ways
it
I
is.
was really insulted because it was such a clear, like, whoa. I was very clear. This had nothing, there's no sexual attraction or connotation here. I was simply exploring, like, wait, why are we adhering to this strange thing that says I need to stay 3 feet away from you all the time? I care about you a lot, and we're all so touch starved. Why? And yep, full stop. Like, that was
That's
it.
the fear, right?
I'm
That's the
laughing
big...
out of the pain of it. Like, wow. And that's me. That's me who has massive amounts of intimacy training and knowledge, and approached this very delicately and carefully and cautiously, and still, literally, that's it. It was the next day, this person was no longer my friend. Like, just the conversation. So I say this, I want to have this conversation, and I'm aware that for some people, physical affection is entirely relegated to sexualized, like they sexualize it, and that's that. And so it's threatening in some way. Or perhaps because, another way to think about this is physical affection, and having negotiations about this is part of how we can start understanding what boundaries are.
Yeah.
And the boundaries are fluid to a degree, I have to respond to the fact that your boundary might be different tomorrow than it is today.
Right.
So the thing that shocked me so much when that friendship was just like cleavered off was, whoa, why didn't you set a boundary and say, this is way out of bounds. I can't, that will not work for me. And then let us renegotiate.
So it could have been the start of a conversation about boundaries and the boundaries of intimacy.
Right.
Because that's kind of where we started this conversation is, all right, so
I did learn something from that experience, though.
And what did you learn?
I learned that I am resilient, and that in fact I can put myself out there, ask for what I want, attempt to deepen intimacy with someone, be rejected wholesale, be cut out completely, and survive.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
I'm sorry you had to learn the lesson that way, but it is good to know.
I think I needed it because this isn't the first time that has happened. I have lost friends. I mean, this, more than a decade ago, I lost many friends all at once. Everybody bailed when I was getting divorced. Just everybody. And some of them were so close, such close friends. And I kind of didn't survive it. I didn't survive so I lost friendship, but I also lost this like physical day-to-day intimacy and these people who'd been present for me physically, and I kind of didn't survive. Like I spiraled into depression. I struggled for years, and then I struggled for years to make friends and to trust that it would be okay. And this loss could have brought up all that stuff to the surface again. And it has. It brought it up to the surface, but I also recognize that it was a reflection of her and her limitations for negotiating and moving through our sticky spots, moving through that discomfort, not to compromise one's own boundaries, but to literally negotiate them. And that's, if we want physical affection, if we want to negotiate like something more than this idea that like personal space, a 3-foot bubble around us all is a good idea. Okay, COVID notwithstanding.
Yeah, okay.
It's a whole other
Right.
That's a whole other conversation. But if we want to move past this, right, we have to believe in our own resilience, because we're going to have conversations that aren't all going to go well.
Right. And I think that you have pretty neatly encapsulated what used to scare me about intimacy. That, because I didn't think, I just heard you say the other day that fear is for things that we don't think we'll be able to handle. Like if you think you can handle it, you're not so much scared
you're not terrified, you're just
any number of other things you might feel about it, but not terrified, because you can handle it. And intimacy wasn't something that I thought I knew how to handle. Like that I was going to hurt someone or just be weird and rejected, or...
So I see this come up with you. I'm guessing that what you were just referring to about earlier in the episode about holding someone's hand, I'm guessing you were talking about some of the dates you went on this past summer and that. So thinking of you dated women at that point, but physical affection among your friends who identify as men, that has been equally... I've heard there's sort of a consternation.
Yeah.
Do I get to ask? Do I get to talk about this?
Yeah. Yep.
It's confusing, right?
I think it's an expression of my bisexuality. Confused by everybody, because
that's it. So you're equally confused about everyone.
I'm equally confused, but I think
also about all topics.
And also, wait, hey,
it's not true. Your Diffie Q is perfect.
No, it was once. I forgot what I was saying.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. I'll go back and listen to the episode later.
When you were saying that you were nervous about the physical affection and like, would it be interpreted in the way you meant? What about with guys? Like just imagining for a second, like some sort of crisp gender binary that totally doesn't exist. What about the guys?
Well, it's funny that you mention it that way because, well, apparently I'm worried about homophobia.
Yeah, me too.
Right?
Well, so there's the thing, getting the door slammed in my face because I wanted to sit next to a friend rather than 4 couch cushions away. I was reminded of what it was like to be queer in high school, and I made out with girls and did many more things with girls, but you never spoke about them. It was so reminiscent. I'm like, oh my God, right. So I'm out, and when I date people, this is still gonna come up. Dating, not dating, friendships. Homophobia sucks. Okay.
And I also think there are aspects of our Western Puritan-based culture here in definitely the northeastern United States has lots of that has a tendency to isolate us. Like it just has all these pressures that cause us to like automatically isolate ourselves. And I have watched you constantly reaching past that. And it took me some time to push past my programming, my socialization to accept your offers of connection and intimacy.
Yeah,
knowing that's true about me, I kind of expect it in others too, and then that leaves me not reaching, which is my failure, because that's just leaning into the same
So do you think
problem.
that the lack of willingness to lean into just general physical affection, I mean, you have to want to do that, and then you have to find that resilience. So what are you going to do if it doesn't go
Yep.
well?
If it goes different than you think it's going to, can you handle it?
And I've seen you handle really challenging things, but I do get why this would be a particularly challenging thing. And then now let's add to it that we are in this, year 3 or whatever of pandemic time. The added level of isolation that is. I was just talking with someone recently who, has been living in isolation a very long time now. This is not easy. So I want to just add to the fact that I recognize that people may not feel like they can put this into practice right this second. I think we could do a follow-up episode and talk about what is verbal intimacy and affection? What does that look like?
Yeah.
And maybe even more, what is written? How could we increase our intimacy through, in particular, I'm thinking our texting.
Well, that's what I was thinking. What a useful thing that would be. So much texting happens. So much
texting.
Comments on social media posts. All this written
and short, and concise.
Short.
I was talking with a guy recently in a class I was taking, and he was talking about like the way that his friends were like, they were really harsh with each other, and that's sort of the form of intimacy that they had.
Yeah.
And I was glad he recognized that that's kind of what they were aiming at. But I asked him, well, what if you were the change? What if you were the person who just decided to go out on a limb? And he sat with it for a minute. He was like, I guess I could. And I just left him with that. I'm like, I'm not suggesting you have to, but I think we could all probably find ways to shift, to have more affection available for others, and to invite more affection toward us. Okay, so this is a puzzler. I don't have an answer, but
I
thank you for the question.
Worth pursuing. Well, keep talking to each other.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode. I've got one more thing I'd like to share with you, and that you're just going to need to hop over to the website listentojoli.com. There you can grab my top 5 relationship guides for free right now.
Go get those guides. They're great. They're easy to implement conversations that will help you take action in creating the love you really want.
It's my mission to make absolutely everything talk-aboutable.
She managed to help me be able to talk about stuff that I once couldn't even imagine saying out loud. Now I speak openly with my lovers, my friends, my family, and you on a podcast. Out loud. Relationship work really can change everything.
That really is a wonder. One of my favorite things in the whole world. So when you're feeling the rough edges, when things aren't going the way that you'd hoped in your relationships, I want you to remember that relationships can be messy, and that's good news.